There is a story we have been telling ourselves for a very long time. It is the central myth of the modern age of self-help, whispered in 1,000 books, seminars, and late-night podcasts. The story goes like this. Deep within you, buried beneath the layers of social conditioning, childhood trauma, and the fear-based habits of your daily life, there exists a true self. This self is pure, it is radiant, it is creative, and it is unconditionally good. Your life's great work, according to this story, is an archaeological dig. Your job is to excavate this pristine, authentic self. You must peel back the layers, heal the wounds, and clear away the debris of your flawed personality until you can finally uncover the beautiful, shining jewel that you were always meant to be. We are told to be our authentic selves, and what we hear is an instruction to find this perfect hidden version and to discard all the rest. And so, we dig. We meditate. We journal. We go to therapy, all in the service of this noble quest. We search for a version of ourselves that is free from anger, free from envy, free from selfish ambition, free from all the messy, dark, and inconvenient parts of our nature. When these negative feelings inevitably arise, the flash of rage in traffic, the pang of jealousy at a friend's success, the cold thought of cruelty, we treat them as obstacles. They are the dirt and the mud covering the treasure we are looking for. We acknowledge them only long enough to sweep them aside, to pathologize them as products of our trauma or our ego, and then we continue our dig, hoping to finally reach the pure, clean layer of our true, good, and loving self beneath it all. But in the quiet moments of radical honesty, a different, more frightening thought can arise. What if we have been digging for years and we have found nothing? What if, the deeper we go, the more mess we seem to find? The unspoken fear that haunts this entire quest is a terrifying one. What if there is no jewel? Or worse, what if we are afraid of what we might actually find if we ever reach the bottom? We continue our search for the saint within, all the while terrified of the monster that we constantly and secretly encounter along the way. This is where we must confront a terrifying and ultimately liberating truth from the world of Jungian depth psychology. What if the entire premise of our search is a profound and dangerous form of self-deception? What if the map we have been given is leading us not to a treasure, but away from ourselves? What if, when you finally dig down to the very core of your being, you do not find a beautiful, enlightened soul waiting for you? What if instead you find the very monster you have been running from your entire life? A creature made of all the rage, the envy, the lust, the raw ambition, and the savage desire you have so carefully and righteously disowned. This is the great unsettling secret of the Jungian path. The journey to a truly authentic life is not about excavating a perfect self. It is about having the courage to integrate a monstrous one. This video is not another guide to finding the jewel. It is a map to the monster's lair. It is a lesson on how to confront the terrifying, the powerful, and the truly real you that you have been trying so desperately to hide. The uncomfortable truth proposed in our title, that the real you is the monster, goes against the most cherished beliefs of our culture. But this discomfort arises from a fundamental error in our self-perception. We have mistaken a single well-lit room for the entire architecture of our soul. To understand the Jungian truth, we must zoom out and look at the whole map of the psyche, a map far grander and more terrifying than we have been led to believe. We have spoken before of the persona. This is the polished, public-facing self, the mask we present to the world to be liked, to be accepted, to fit in. It is our collection of socially approved roles, the diligent worker, the loyal friend, the thoughtful partner. The persona is a vital tool for social navigation, but in the modern world we have made a critical error. We have over-identified with it. We have come to believe that we are the mask. We spend our lives curating this good self, and we believe that this curated image is the totality of our being. This is the great illusion that Jung's work seeks to shatter, because for every quality we consciously choose to put on our mask, we must simultaneously reject its opposite. This is the job of the ego. The ego is the center of our conscious world, the I who narrates our story. Its primary function is to create and maintain a stable and consistent sense of identity. To do this, it forms a powerful alliance with the persona. The ego says, "I am a kind, rational, and patient person." Therefore, when a surge of primitive rage or a flash of irrational jealousy erupts from the depths of our being, the ego's defense mechanisms kick in immediately. It must reject this data, pushing it away and declaring, "That is not me," because to accept it would be to shatter its own story of who it is. The ego is a king ruling a small, well-lit island of consciousness, and its greatest fear is being overthrown by the vast, dark, and chaotic ocean that surrounds it on all sides. And this brings us to the most important and misunderstood concept in all of Jungian thought, the self, with a capital S. If the ego is the king of the small island, the self is the entire planet. The self is the true center and the totality of the psyche. It encompasses everything, the conscious and the unconscious, the light and the dark, the ego, the persona, and yes, the shadow. The real you, in the Jungian sense, is not the conscious ego that you think you are. The real you is the entire paradoxical and often contradictory self. Our entire life's journey, the process Jung called individuation, is the epic task of the ego decentering itself. It is the process of the king of the small island, realizing he is not the master of the world, but merely a small part of a much larger ecosystem. It is the journey of turning away from the performance of the persona and toward a relationship with the vast and powerful self. And the self, by its very nature, is a union of opposites. It is both divine and demonic, rational and instinctual, saintly and monstrous. The reason the real you is the monster you're trying to hide is because you have spent your entire life mistakenly believing that you are only the small, clean, well-lit part of your own psyche. You have identified with the captain of the boat, while your true nature is the entire terrifying and magnificent ocean, which absolutely and unequivocally contains monsters. The Jungian truth is that you are not one or the other. You are both. And to deny the monster is to deny the very ocean that gives you life. I did not come to this understanding of the self in the shadow through calm academic study. I came to it through the painful and humbling experience of my own failed attempt to live a life of pure light. There was a period in my life where I took the popular mandate to be a good person as a kind of sacred vow. I was tired of my own flaws, my own anger, my own selfish impulses. And so I decided with all the conscious force of my ego that I would become a better man. My goal, though I would not have used the word at the time, was to become a kind of secular saint. I would systematically identify every monstrous part of my personality, and I would starve it into submission. My repressed anger was the first to go. I decided that anger was a primitive and unenlightened emotion. So I vowed to meet every frustration, every insult, and every injustice with a calm and patient smile. I became infinitely understanding, endlessly forgiving. I believed this was a sign of my spiritual progress. Next on the chopping block was my ambition. I decided that the desire to stand out, to achieve, to be recognized was a vulgar and selfish manifestation of the ego. So I dedicated myself to a life of humble service. I made myself small so that others could be big. I celebrated the success of others while quietly putting my own aspirations on a dusty shelf in the back of my mind. Finally, I went to war with any form of primal desire. I decided that my raw, instinctual nature was something to be transcended. I sought a more detached, more controlled, more pure way of being in the world. I had, in essence, declared war on the monster. I had identified the shadow as the enemy, and I was determined to win. On the outside, my persona had never been more polished. I was praised by others for being so nice, so calm, so selfless. I was, by all external accounts, succeeding in my project of sainthood. But on the inside, I was dying. The war was a catastrophic failure. Repressing my anger did not make me peaceful. It made me passive-aggressive. The anger didn't disappear. It simply went underground, seeping out in the form of sarcastic comments, a quiet resentment, and a profound inability to defend my own boundaries. Repressing my ambition did not make me humble, it made me bitter. I would watch the success of others not with a pure and generous heart, but with a secret, corrosive envy that I was too ashamed to admit even to myself. And repressing my primal energy did not make me enlightened, it made me a ghost. I became disconnected from my own body, from my own vitality, from the very life force that makes existence feel real and substantial. I had not become a saint. I had become a hollow shell, a well-behaved and deeply depressed automaton. The more good I became on the outside, the more miserable and inauthentic I felt on the inside. The great humbling confession is this: my attempt to be a saint was the most dishonest and soul-crushing period of my life. The turning point came when I finally had to admit that the monster I was trying so desperately to kill was, in fact, the most vital and authentic part of me. That repressed anger was the source of my personal boundaries and my passion for justice. That repressed ambition was the source of my creative fire. That repressed desire was the source of my connection to the raw, beautiful, and chaotic business of being alive. The monster I'd been trying to hide, the shadow I'd been trying to starve, was the very source of my power. And in my noble attempt to become perfectly good, I had almost succeeded in becoming perfectly dead. To realize that your attempt to be a saint has led you to a living death is to find yourself at a critical turning point. You have learned that the war against the monster within is a war against your own vitality, and it is a war you can only lose by winning. So what is the alternative? If we are not meant to kill the monster, what are we to do with it? The answer is not a new battle plan. The answer is an act of radical and courageous diplomacy. We must learn to stop fighting a war and start negotiating a peace treaty with the powerful, exiled, and long-suffering parts of our own kingdom. The first and most fundamental step is a radical reorientation of your life's ultimate goal. For most of your life, the goal, whether conscious or not, has likely been to be a good person. This very goal is the engine that creates the shadow. It forces you to constantly edit and censor yourself, to repress any thought, feeling, or impulse that does not fit into your narrow, idealized narrative of who you are. The new goal, the Jungian goal, is not to be good, it is to be whole. Wholeness is a far more difficult and more honest aspiration. It is the capacity to hold the tension of the opposites within yourself, without collapsing into a one-sided illusion. It is the courageous and unflinching admission that you are, and always will be, both the hero and the villain of your own story. You are capable of profound generosity, and you are capable of petty selfishness. You are capable of transcendent love, and you are capable of bitter, destructive rage. To be whole is to stop pretending you are only one half of that equation. This shift in your ultimate aim, from the pursuit of purity to the pursuit of wholeness, is the only foundation upon which any real inner work can be built. With this new goal in mind, the second practice is to identify your monster's legitimate needs. Jung taught that the shadow does not act out in destructive ways for no reason. Its monstrous behavior is almost always a distorted, desperate, and primitive attempt to have a legitimate and essential need met. The monster is often just a starving and neglected part of you, acting out in the only way it knows how. Your task, then, is to become a compassionate detective. When a monstrous feeling arises, a surge of burning envy, a flash of cold-hearted greed, a wave of volcanic rage, you do not act on it, but you also do not immediately condemn it. You pause, you turn inward, and you ask it a simple question: what do you need? Listen for the answer. That envy you feel toward your successful colleague is not just a sign of your own pettiness. It is a desperate message from your own repressed ambition. Its legitimate need is for you to pursue your own potential with more courage. That rage you feel when someone violates your boundaries is not just a primitive impulse. It is the voice of your own self-worth, crying out in protest. Its legitimate need is for you to stand up for yourself. That selfish desire to retreat from the world is not just a sign of being uncaring. It is the voice of your own exhausted spirit. Its legitimate need is for rest and solitude. By identifying the legitimate need behind the distorted, monstrous emotion, you can begin to address the root of the problem rather than just fighting the symptom. The final practice is to negotiate and integrate, not annihilate. Once you have identified the monster's legitimate need, your job is to find a conscious, constructive, and mature way to meet it. You do not let the monster run the kingdom, but you give it a respected seat at the royal council. You say to that part of yourself, I understand your need. I recognize its legitimacy. However, your proposed method of fulfilling it is destructive and unacceptable. Let us find a better way together. This is the art of integration. You take the raw primal energy of your repressed aggression and you consciously channel it into becoming more disciplined and assertive at work. You take the fiery energy of your envy and you channel it into the focused pursuit of your own creative project. You take the energy of your selfishness and you schedule a weekend of genuine, guilt-free rest and self-care. This is the great work. It is the lifelong process of taking the raw, monstrous, and powerful energy of the shadow and giving it a conscious, noble, and life-affirming job. We began this journey on a noble quest for the true self, a search for the pure and perfect jewel that we believed was hidden beneath the mud and chaos of our personality. We have followed the map into the dark abyss of the psyche, and what we have found there is not the shining jewel we expected. We have found the monster. We have found the shadow. It would be easy to see this as a failed quest, a depressing and cynical conclusion to our search for authenticity. But this is the final, paradoxical, and liberating Jungian truth. The monster is the treasure. The real you we were searching for was never lost. It was simply incomplete. The pure, perfect, saintly self that we were trying to excavate was a dangerous illusion, a fragile and hollow persona. The truly real, authentic, and powerful self is not a thing of one-sided purity, but of courageous wholeness. It is a messy, terrifying, and beautiful union of the light and the dark. Your capacity for genuine kindness is only made real by your acknowledged capacity for rage. Your true strength is only forged when you have confronted your own weakness. To finally look at the monster in the mirror and not turn away is the ultimate act of self-acceptance. To embrace the monster is not to become evil. It is to finally become whole. It is to reclaim the raw power, the passion, and the fierce vitality that you exiled into the darkness along with your shame. The great work of our lives is not to be a good person. It is to be a complete person. This journey of integration is the most difficult and rewarding adventure a human being can undertake. If you are ready to continue the courageous work of facing the totality of who you are, I invite you to subscribe for more deep dives into the human psyche. And now, be honest and brave in the comments below. Tell us, what monster within you have you been hiding? And what hidden power might it secretly hold? Your confession is an act of wholeness,